This is The Bandwagon, a podcast about baseball and feelings. I'm Hannah Kaiser, a baseball writer at Yahoo Sports, joined as always by Zach Kreiser, also a baseball writer at Yahoo Sports. Hello. We are both not in our Brooklyn homes right now.
We are not. Your reason is more exciting. It is a slightly belated happy birthday to you because yesterday was your birthday.
That's actually not why I'm not in my home. I did have a lovely birthday celebration. By celebration, I mean I just did what I wanted to do. No one celebrated. It wasn't like a whole thing.
That is a celebration.
That is a celebration. I celebrated by enjoying myself in Philadelphia. That's where I am from. Kind of. That's what I always say. And then people correct me because I'm actually from South Jersey. And currently I'm in South Jersey at the house where I grew up. But I am here for baseball reasons. We'll get to that at the end of the podcast. And we can also touch on where you are. But first, we have some baseball things to get to. Oh, later on in this podcast, we should say, we're doing a big interview or like a whole talk to someone in baseball interview with Kyle Snyder, the pitching coach of the best in baseball Tampa Bay Rays. And that's been true for a long time, that they've been the best in baseball. And it's one of those things that you can actually say, even though it's record-based, and it'll probably still be true when this podcast comes out. So definitely stick around for that. But first, we have some around baseball news we wanted to touch on. We're late to the Cardinals hamburger phone. People have been talking about this, but we have not. So let's talk about it.
So the Cardinals, who were bad somewhat recently, have become less bad since the whole benching Wilson Contreras and then bringing him back to catch again situation. And at least some of them think the reason that they are better is that they procured a hamburger phone, like a, kitschy little phone that looks like a cheeseburger to be specific. Right. And they put it in the dugout and they make calls on it to say, hey, this guy's going to get a homer. And then sometimes, a lot of times they have been hitting homers since they got this hamburger phone.
They have. If I did the math correctly, so first of all, credit to Derek Gould, who did a lot of the cheeseburger phone investigative reporting. He wrote this article a couple days ago, so I believe I did the math correctly, adding to his total at the time. I believe they have hit 27 home runs in the 12 games since the hamburger phone was introduced. A lot of these came in one particular game, but that's still really remarkable. They've also, as you might assume, if they've been hitting 27 home runs in 12 games, been winning a lot of those games, which they were not doing a ton of to start the season. This is so there's a lot of home run celebrations that you do after you hit a home run. We've talked about some of those. This is like a home run enticement. It's like a home run
prophecy tactic.
Yeah. Like what? It's like a home run seance almost. It is tapping into the fact that baseball players love to tell reporters after the fact that they have predicted the critical, the game-winning, the crucial home run. They love to say, the guys in the dugout, they'll be like, turn to so-and-so, and I said, watch, he's going to do it. And this is a way to do that. So they are calling their shots by picking up a phone that I don't think is plugged in and typing in, again, not important because it's not dialing anything, the number of the player who is at bat if they would like to predict, they being whoever's in the dugout, that he's going to hit a home run. And then you have to hit pound. This was explained as being critical because pound is a thing that ties both phones, because they have pound keys, to burgers, which are measured in pounds, to home runs, which are pounded, I believe, is how they were making that connection.
They could have really just stuck with the Big Mac land being a thing in St. Louis, but they went with this. Also, for those of you under the age of 25, pound is the hashtag sign. Carry on.
That's true. Do you think that the younger players on the team were like, what? When they said you have to hit pound at the end?
It's the Cardinals. They're all spiritually 50.
That's fair. I enjoyed, so they wanted to have hamburger hats to go with the home run hamburger phone. And Alec Burleson, the one who procured the phone, said, you can't just find a big old hamburger hat somewhere. Was not what we anticipated, because they were disappointed with the hamburger hats that they were able to find. And so currently just a phone. They would like to get hats to go with it. think this is kind of cute because it's different. I really enjoyed, first of all, like all we're doing is quoting from Derek Gould's article, so you should just go and read it because there's more worth reading. There's more such quotes as "I just Googled hamburger phone," waiting for you. But I would like to shout out one Adam Wainwright quote because we're not going to talk about every possible home run celebration and every bit of prop comedy that baseball teams are employing these days. This one notable because of the sort of timeliness of the Cardinals turnaround in conjunction with the hamburger phone. And we talked about the Wilson Contreras drama. By the way, he's back to catching. I think we touched on that. He's doing well. And this is my favorite quote from Derek Gould's story is just Adam Wainwright. "We have tons of fun. We have always had lots of fun." And I hope he said it with that exact intonation because it just feels like until he said that, I was like, okay, this seems a little bit fun. And then he was like, what are you talking about? We always have fun. And now I kind of feel like they did it just to make us talk about how fun they are.
Your shirt, your "I'm having lots of fun" shirt is raising questions that we didn't have. But
we always have had lots of fun is not the thing that people who have lots of fun all the time say. That's like me talking about my birthday celebration where I was like, it was fun. When what I really mean is I didn't make any plans because I have existential dread of aging. So yeah.
You know who else could use a hamburger phone?
I would love to see how you try to make a transition here. So please tell me more.
The San Diego Padres need a hamburger phone, or possibly anybody in the minors who can hit phone.
Oh, I was going to make it about them being San Diego.
The tacos?
Like a fish taco phone.
Fish taco phone. Okay, let's get on that. Let's get the San Diego Padres a fish taco phone. The Padres are, because the Cardinals have kind of turned it around and the Mets had a great weekend, the Padres are kind of standing alone as MLB's most disappointing team, which is not going to get better for them this week. I mean, it might get better for them this week, but
they're playing the Washington Nationals. I feel like if it's going to get better for them,
that's a bad comparison, though, because they're going to just be reminded of all the players they gave up for Juan Soto. And look, Juan Soto has been fine recently. He's been good recently. It does not change the fact that the whole problem with the Padres is that they have like 4 players and no one else who can do anything. And they're going to play the Nationals, who have several of the players who might have been helpful for them if they had not traded them away. And I'm not saying the Juan Soto trade was bad. I'm just saying it does drive home the point that the Padres have spent a lot of time trading away depth that they could really use right now.
Right. The Juan Soto trade, I don't think anything about the Juan Soto, like it's not like people saw coming that Juan Soto was going to perform poorly for a long stretch with the Padres when he had not done so with the Nationals. I'm not going to say that he got bad because, well, again, he's playing better and he's still quite young. And in fact, the season is still quite young and he might go on to have like a, get some MVP votes kind of season. But you're right that it is a perhaps unfortunately timed reminder that they really mortgaged their future for this very particular team that does not look especially well constructed. Their farm system is not as bad as I thought it might be. When I Googled Padres farm system, I was like, based on all the trades they have made in the last couple of years, I would not be surprised if this was like a bottom 5 farm system. And it's not. It's like 23rd, 24th. But that's not what you want for a team that is not currently above 500. Like, it's like you really either want the team to be good or the farm system to be at least in the top half. If your team is both expensive, under 500, and the farm system is in the bottom 10, something has gone wrong along the way. And we don't really know what it is. It's like something in the team construction, but like it really is in the off season. In the off season, I wrote a column that was like, sign all the good players. Who cares if they fit? And as it turns out, the results of the baseball, they care if it fits. Like it's the Padres are kind of like an experiment in like, does talent win over like incredibly precise team construction and depth? And not yet.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between the fit and the depth, and I don't think it would matter if you had, Jake Cronenworth playing first and Fernando Tatis playing right, and all of these guys playing out of their technical original position. It wouldn't matter if they actually had enough guys to fill out a lineup with competent bats, but they kind of don't. They are throwing Matt Carpenter and Nelson Cruz out there almost every day. They are throwing a lot of guys you've never heard of out there in some spots. Jose Azocar, Brandon Dixon. I mean, Trent Grisham has been terrible for roughly a year, except for the one time he scorched the Mets for 3 games. He's been an under 200 hitter the entire time. So they have a bit of an issue that you can't solve with just rearranging the stars they have, because for the most part, the stars they have are not the issue. It's they don't have enough guys to keep the offense rolling. And that is part of it's not the Juan Soto trade, but it is the Juan Soto trade and all the other trades, the right. Joe Musgrove trade, which, Joe Musgrove has been great for them, but there are like 3 guys from that trade who are starting in the lineup for the Pittsburgh Pirates who are right now better than the San Diego Padres. So, it sounds stupid, but this is how baseball works. If Jack Sawinski were playing left field for the Padres instead of some mixture of Jose Azocar and all these other guys, they would have a better lineup. They just would, and it kind of compounds on itself.
Right now, the Padres lineup is 30th. That's last in batting average, which is wild, just based on like the first 4 names. It's Fernando Tatis Jr., Jake Cronenworth, Xander Bogaerts, Juan Soto. To pair that top of the lineup with the worst in baseball batting average, you have to be like, okay, so then like somewhere in the front office, someone did not take into account the realities of what sort of determined the outcome of a baseball season, which is disappointing because I don't want the Padres methodology of gung-ho, get all the stars, come what may. What is it that Peter Seidler said? The really good, like, nobody remembers. Like, remember he had that really good quote? It was
he said, nobody remembers if the 1927 Yankees lost money.
Exactly, yes. So I would love for that to be a stance that is vindicated. Thus far, it has not been. We're going to spoil it was like the end of the podcast. What are we watching bit? But you are in Washington, D.C. You will see the Padres. You will see Juan Soto return to Washington, D.C., which is what I did. Last year, I was on the Juan Soto returns to Washington, D.C. beat. I was there for the trade deadline, and then I went back for the game for when the Padres came to D.C., which was like only like 2 weeks later. And at the time, Nats fans were very happy to see him, and they gave him a warm welcome, and it still felt very, very raw, but also very like, well, actually, never mind. What it felt was Ronald Tatis Jr. has just been suspended for PEDs because that happened like the day before. But the Nats fans' vibe was still like, we're selling Juan Soto jerseys and we're focused on the past. And I'll be really interested to hear, please, we're having this conversation on air that we have off air. Please go and see what kind of jerseys they're selling, because there are some glimmers of the next Nats team to contend on the team right now, and I'm curious if they will be promoting those guys or if they're still kind of hanging on to the Juan Soto and other 2019 jerseys in there.
I will report back on the jersey selection. I bet they've moved on. I bet we're getting a good helping of Mackenzie Gore and possibly some Joey Meneses. Some Keibert Ruiz.
Will you bring me a Joey Meneses jersey?
No, I'm not going to the team store to buy things.
So I can't ask for one of the hats with the cherry blossom hats either. I do love the cherry blossom hats.
The cherry blossom hats are good.
They have the best City Connect jerseys, and
no, the Padres do actually. This is a matchup of the Padres of the City Connect jerseys.
They should make City Connect road jerseys just so that way that can happen, because those are the 2 teams with the best City Connect jerseys. We're going to touch on one more bit of banter, and then we'll get to a game. I thought this was really interesting. Andrew McCutchen talked to The Athletic about the fact that with steal attempts on the rise and successful steals on the rise, but steal attempts on the rise, he's focused on the fact that the way that fielders are, like the second baseman, are sort of fielding the throws from home, the throws from the catcher, the attempts to throw a guy out at second when he's stealing. What is that called? Is there a name for that? Why am I blanking on this?
The throws? I think it's just the throws. The throws to second.
But is there a pickoff? It's not the pickoff. All right.
No, it's just a
attempts to get a guy out at second. That when they're fielding that, they're putting their knee down to block the base. That's good fielding. Makes it more difficult for guys to slide. But then they are sliding because they're trying to steal a base. And McCutchen's concern was that somebody's going to get hurt, a la the Buster Posey hurt at home plate on a slide that inspired a rule about where catchers can field the ball when a guy is coming into home. And I think his argument about kind of there is a direct parallel. It's what happened with Buster Posey and the rule change that followed. And are we going to have to wait for someone to get hurt in order for them to consider changing this rule? That was all compelling. You were like, no, he's just like, hey, while we're changing rules, can I maybe sneak one in there that I think would be personally beneficial?
I do think it's interesting. I mean, great job, Andrew McCutchen. I think we already knew he was a pretty savvy operator, but he is, saying, oh, these guys are going to get hurt. And by bringing up Posey, he specifically makes it like, oh, the fielders are in danger. I'm going to get hurt. It's like, no, man, you are just trying to not get out at second base when you steal, which is very valid reason to propose a rule change while we're feeling rule changey in baseball. But it was funny because clearly this mostly impacts the fact that base runners are having a harder time getting to second that way. And that is an Andrew McCutchen interest right there, because Andrew McCutchen doesn't play second base or shortstop. He's never going to get hurt on a steal attempt blocking a bag. He might jam a finger or something, but that's true with even the base. But I respect this. You got to shoot your shot when you see that there is an opening. You're like, hey, this has annoyed me for probably years. I am ready to see if MLB will just do away with it on my behalf. So, great job getting this out there for him.
And we think that this is a public call for other players who have really niche annoyances to try to float those rule changes as part of a slate of overhauling baseball to make it more fun and more interesting. Although, you know what? Base stealers not having that hard of a time, because also success rates are unprecedented in recent seasons. So they're making it work for themselves, despite the knee-down fielders blocking the bases. We didn't prep for this, but I gotta say, do you have any rule changes based on the season thus far that you're like, now that I'm seeing all these new rules in action or whatever, I think we gotta adjust one thing? Do you have anything? Because I have something.
I don't really have anything to adjust about the current rules. I think the rule change that will come someday, that I am coming around to the fact needs to happen, is just limiting outfield positioning to help balls in play. I think, I don't know exactly what the answer is. I'd be interested to see them test it, but I believe teams have gotten so good at positioning outfielders that they have taken away a lot of the extra base hits. And I think the answer might actually be kind of the same thing as the infield, where the outfielders have to play closer than they want to. Going back is harder, leads to more extra bases when guys hit it over their heads. So that's the one I could see happening. I don't know what exactly it would be, so it's hard to say if I'm in favor of it, but I think I'd be interested in seeing how that would work.
I think the thing that's, first of all, true, and I think that something that they have at least discussed or acknowledged, when they're considering what can be legislated to make it a better game, I think outfield defensive ability and just sort of shutdownness is on that list. I find the concerns from the pitchers that they do not have a timeout to be pretty compelling. I think a 10-second timeout, one per inning, would add not more than 2 minutes to the overall game time. And I think that because it's when someone's on base, you have the pickoff attempt, which is just can function in some ways as a timeout if you just need to catch your breath, and then you just don't have that if there's no one on base, and they should have a thing. So that's my sympathy towards pitchers.
My counter is that they have mound visits. They can just call the catcher out, and
They do.
No one is really getting close to using those up. So
that's a great point. Okay, someone needs to write about the fact that like everyone is very concerned about the number of mound visits being limited, or sort of the number of pitcher breaks being limited, and mound visits being one of those. But they're not coming close to using them. I want to know: is this because the pitchers don't want to use up their team's mound visits in case, like, on behalf of the other pitchers? Like, are they feeling pressured to not be the guy who uses up the mound visits? I'd be curious about that.
We can ask.
Get back to you. All right, we're going to play a game. And I thought initially, I was like, what can I make a game about? I was trying to think. You did such a good job with the Mookie Betts shortstop game, making it incredibly topical. And I was thinking, what have I been enjoying in baseball lately? And I was really enjoying Austin Hedges' walk-up song, being Fat Bottom Girls.
Okay.
And
that is not where I thought that was going.
And I was like, is now a time for walk-up music quiz? And it is.
No.
Now is a time for walk-up music quiz, which it's not smart. Like, this is not going to teach you anything about baseball. But I really enjoyed reading through all of the walk-up music. This is a disclaimer at the top of this quiz. This quiz is based on the fact that MLB.com keeps lists of every team's walk-up songs. They are not necessarily like the most up to date. I checked on some of them, and some of them were last year's, and so maybe guys have new songs, but that's what we're going off of. It's the official MLB.com list. So if you are like a diehard fan of a team with a guy whose walk-up song we're talking about, and you're like, I was just at the game, that wasn't the song he's using, fine. Maybe he has a second song. That doesn't negate the question. Okay. Sufficiently disclaimed?
Okay, sufficiently disclaimed. Here's my disclaimer. This is going to be bad. I'm much better at things I can look up on Baseball Reference than this. I
think you will. I tried to make these not just like name that guy's walk-up song.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
All right. Which player relatively... These are going to be multiple choice. These are multiple choice.
Oh, multiple choice. Okay,
yeah,
better
multiple
chance
choice. Sorry. Which player, relatively new to New York, walks out to Candy Shop by 50 Cent? Your options are A, Starling Marte, B, Mark Vientos, C, Harrison Bader, D, Jake Bowers, or E, Willie Calhoun.
There's an E?
Not for all of them. I don't know why I gave you so many options for that one.
My first instinct was Harrison Bader.
That is correct. Harrison Bader walks out to Candy Shop by 50 Cent. I think that is excellent. It is an instantly recognizable song. I don't know why he does it, but I enjoy it. All right. Which player walks out to Vegas by Doja Cat? A, Chris Bryant, B, Joey Gallo, C, Bryce Harper, or D, Anthony Volpe?
Well, all of them except Anthony Volpe are from Vegas. I don't think it's Harper. I think it's Joey Gallo.
It is Anthony Volpe.
What?
I have no idea why. Like, I was like, so many New York-centric songs. His whole thing. He's from the New York area.
It's possible he's sick of talking about that. Yeah. Or he's just a huge Doja Cat fan.
Which, you know what? Shout out to him. There is a very low percentage of baseball players who walk out to music by female artists, and so we support those that do. Okay. What has not been a walk-up song for Pete Alonso? Working Man by Rush, Rebel Yell by Billy Idol, Welcome to the Show by Cody Johnson, or Hypnotize by Notorious B.I.G.?
I don't think he's used Hypnotize.
No, it's Rebel Yell by Billy Idol.
That seems like a Pete Alonso song.
That's exactly right. Thank you. I appreciate you validating my incredibly bizarre research into what songs seem like Pete Alonso songs. That song was inspired by seeing that he comes out to Working Man by Rush and being like, oh my God, he would.
Yeah, he would be, his walk-up songs are like a playlist that Florida men have crashed cars to, I think is the playlist for his. Okay,
question 4. Who is the only Braves player to walk out to Outkast? Which, first of all, they should all walk out to Outkast.
They should all walk out to Outkast. Okay.
Who is the only Braves player to walk out to Outkast? A, Colin McHugh to So Fresh, So Clean. B, Michael Harris, Hey Ya. C, Matt Olson, Players Ball. Or D, Austin Riley, Miss Jackson.
I think it might just be Michael Harris to Hey Ya.
No, it's Colin McHugh, So Fresh, So Clean.
What? Okay, good job, Colin McHugh.
I know! That question, because they should come out to Outkast, a famously Atlanta band, and none of the guys who are famously from Atlanta, which is a thing the Braves do, come out to Outkast. All right. What 90s one-hit wonder does Francisco Lindor walk out to? A, Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba. B, Mambo No. 5 by Lou Bega. C, Return of the Mac by Mac Morrison. Or D, Summer Girls by LFO.
Wow. I hear Francisco Lindor's walk-up music so often, and I don't know the answer, but I think it might be Summer Girls.
No, it's Mambo No. 5 by Lou Bega. Why? A little bit of my guy. I was like, what the? Yeah. So, again, I listened to all these songs while I was creating this quiz, because why not? And I frequently thought to myself, that'd make a great walk-up song. So somebody should come out to Summer Girls, and also somebody should come out to Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba.
I feel like someone does, but I don't know who.
If you are a baseball player who comes out to Chumbawamba, hit us up in the DMs. Okay. Question 6. Which of these pitchers does not come out to Leonard Skinner's Simple Man?
Oh my goodness. Well, I know one of them who does. Carry on.
Jacob deGrom, Aaron Nola, or Shane McClanahan? What's the one that you know?
DeGrom definitely does.
Yeah, that's a Simple Man.
Yes, he comes out to Simple Man. I think Nola does not.
Correct. But you agree, right? It fits. He should.
I would have believed it, but
yes.
I talked to Aaron Nola not that long ago, and I mean, it's well known that he is a Louisiana guy, but he really has not lost the accent at all. It's all there. So
I was surprised that Shane McClanahan comes out to Leonard Skinner's Simple Man. I would not have guessed. If you asked me which two pitchers have the same walkout music, I would not have guessed Jacob deGrom and Shane McClanahan.
Hey, they both, well, I guess McClanahan is not from Florida originally, but he did also go to a smallish school in Florida. So maybe they pick it up in the...
Maybe it's big there.
Yeah.
All right, this one is not multiple choice. Who is the only player to walk out to a song literally about them with their full first and last name in the title?
This is currently?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Who would have a song about them that is currently in the majors?
I mean, maybe this was a few years ago, because to be honest, I haven't checked up on him in a little while, and there's a lot less reason for him to be in the title of a song these days.
Wait, you don't know if he's in the majors now, or
no, he's in the majors now.
He's
but
definitely in the majors. You just don't know if
he may have adopted a slightly more humble song because of him being slightly less out of the news cycle.
We
will need a guess. This is audio material.
I will go with Cody Bellinger.
That would have been good. Javi Baez comes out to Javi Baez El Mago by an artist that's Diazzi? That's a song? Javi Baez El Mago?
Is that just his like burner handle on Twitter?
It might be. We were like, I wonder if this song, we were driving, my husband and I, Jake, when we were building this quiz, and we were like, I wonder if that's actually about Javi Baez. I don't know, maybe there's another Javi Baez, and we clicked on it, and it's like, the opening note is like the crack of the bat, and we were like, yes, it is. That's about Javi Baez.
El Mago, that's his nickname.
I know that, but I was like, we should check.
Yeah, I need to know what Cody Bellinger's walk-up is now, because I bet it's like either the Grateful Dead or like some band that is even more jam band than the Grateful Dead, but...
All right, question 8. This is I'm hoping that you can figure this out, because when I saw it on the team list, I was so delighted that I had to come up with a way to make a question about it. So hopefully it's like doable. There are a pair of songs that are very funny on the Giants when considered their titles and their players and the pairing. Great. This is a two-part question. Who walks out to Still Here by Drake? Think of the Giants players.
Still Here by Drake.
The artist is less important than the title.
No, I know. Still Here on the Giants. Brandon Crawford.
Yes, he does. That's exactly right. Conversely, who walks out to Baby I'm Back by Baby Bash and Akon?
Is this a player who's still on the Giants?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say Darren Ruff, but he's not there anymore.
Oh, that would be good.
Baby, I'm back. Oh, no. I'm forgetting someone clearly. Let's go.
I'll make it very easy for you. You wrote about him.
Yeah, is it Michael Conforto?
Yes, it is.
He's never been there before.
Well, but he's back in the... He's back. I saw that and I was just like, chef's kiss, incredible. Brandon Crawford's like, still here? Michael Conforto's like, I'm back. And I thought that was delightful. Okay. Question 9. Yu Darvish walks out to a 2000s era hip-hop song. Which one is it? A, Stronger by Kanye. B, Crank That by Soulja Boy. C, Paper Planes by MIA. Or D, Work It by Missy Elliott.
I'll go with Paper Planes.
No, that is Mark Canna's walkout song, and I absolutely love it. It's just it's such a good vibe in the ballpark. No, we're gonna need to insert. We could probably get the rights to one note of "Crank That" by Soulja Boy. Do you remember how "Crank That" by Soulja Boy starts?
How it starts? I mean, I remember I remember the song. Yeah.
Yes. So
you. Yes! I got it. Yeah.
It's yes. You. Okay. You got it. Can we put that in right here? The part of Soulja Boy that goes you. Question 10. We got 2 more. Max Scherzer walks out to a song that he definitely picked because of the title. Which song is it? Last of a Dying Breed by Ludacris and Lil Wayne. Young Forever by Jay-Z. All Night Long by Chance the Rapper. Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. Or Old Age by Nirvana.
Huh. I think it might be the Jay-Z song. Young Forever.
No, it is Last of a Dying Breed by Ludacris and Lil Wayne. And I was like, oh my God, of course he does.
Baseball players really be telling you about themselves in the walk-up music.
That is what I learned reading all of these. Jock Peterson comes out to a Lonely Island song called So Humble.
Yes.
That was perfect. I hope that when Justin Verlander got to the Mets and Max was like, hi, I come out to Last of a Dying Breed. He was like, but there's 2 of us.
Right here.
All right. This is our last question. On the flip side, did Patrick Corbin pick this because of the title? Okay. A, Loser by Beck. B, Worst Behavior by Drake. C, Going Bad by Meek Mill and Drake. D, Lost Cause by Billie Eilish. Or E, Paid in Full by Eric B. and Rakim.
Oh, man. I'm trying to decide which of those would be the funniest, but I think Loser might be the most in Patrick Corbin's wheelhouse. I'll go with Loser.
No, it's Going Bad by Meek Mill and Drake. I saw that and I was like, why would you do that to yourself?
Paid in Full would have been funnier. That's what Steven Strasburg should come out to whenever he comes back. Yes,
if he had a sense of humor, he would have done that. I'm glad you thought it was Loser because I was worried that one was like too obviously not it. Why would they do that? Producer John, how did Zach do?
Not great. Not great is the answer. 4 of 12, counting 12. Giants as 2.
If you have a long car ride or not a long car ride to kill, I highly recommend just going team by team, looking at the official lists of what songs guys walk out to. It is a riot. Some of the ones that I did not get to include that I enjoyed. Bryce Harper comes out to Flower by Moby. Really? Moby. Everybody knows this. I couldn't include it because it's like you probably remember, but Oscar Gonzalez comes out to the SpongeBob SquarePants theme song, which I enjoy. Drew Smiley comes out to Fall Out Boy. Respect. Nolan Gorman comes out to Ride With Me by Nelly. Tyler O'Neill. Is this true? Because it doesn't seem true and I didn't Google. because it didn't end up into the quiz. Ostensibly, Tyler O'Neill comes out to Elton John's "Hold Me Closer." So,
sure,
I hope that's
sure.
true. And Diego Castillo comes out to a song by Michelle Williams featuring Beyonce and Kelly Rowland. Again, appreciate the guys who come out to female artists.
Yeah, I think it was actually Mark Canna, who we already referenced his song this year, but I think he came out to Careless Whisper last year, perhaps.
Oh, okay.
Which was memorable.
Cal Raleigh comes out to The Way You Move by Outkast, and I just think that's a great song. So, good job. Producer John says Hedges used to come out to Careless Whisper. Well, now he comes out Fat Bottom Girls. So, inspiring this entire quiz. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, the interview with Tampa Bay Rays pitching coach Kyle Snyder. Joining us today on the bandwagon is Kyle Snyder, the Rays pitching coach, the best in baseball Tampa Bay Rays pitching coach. Okay, we're going to go back. I'm going to throw it back to your playing days real quick. When you played, how did you handle injuries, like literally, but also emotionally? What was it like to get injured as a pitcher?
I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I mean, difficult, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to overcome, a lot of hurdles, psychological, physical, doubt, right? Doubt's a tough thing. You know, it's not knowing whether or not you're going to be able to do what you love and what you spent your entire life, you know, pursuing. And, you know, really trying to kind of nail down the best way to, you know, to get beyond some of those hurdles is different for each guy, right? You know, that's why I feel like having some level of understanding, you know, in terms of what these guys go through, the number of injuries that we're seeing in today's generation of the game. You know, I think it's important as you develop relationships with these guys and having had gone through this myself, and it certainly provides me a platform. But I mean, it was tough. I mean, I was the 7th pick of the draft in '99. I did pitch short season that year. Elbow wasn't feeling great, but I never got out of spring training the following year, and I wound up missing my first 2 full seasons of pro baseball because we were trying to prevent having, you know, a very significant surgery, especially at the time. So missing 2 full seasons of the start of your career, if you want to exclude, you know, short season in 1999 in Spokane, it was a lot. I mean, you're watching a lot of your peers now start their careers and start to progress, you know, kind of through the system, and you're just kind of sitting there waiting to get healthy. And it is definitely a difficult process and different for every guy.
To me, you just seem like the consummate coach, but you were a player. So tell me, when did you start to realize that coaching was for you? Not just because maybe the playing stuff wasn't going to work out, but because it was sort of the right way to stay in the game specific to you.
My baseball experiences, like what you basically just raised, right? Just what I went through early in my career and what I felt like the impact that could have on players that I would, you know, usher along and try to help them, you know, be it guys that go through injury or go through disappointment or, you know, come with, you know, a certain amount of expectation given like where they're drafted. And in dealing not even just with injury, but just poor performance, right? And having to get past some of those things. But I think probably the 2nd or 3rd time I reinvented myself due to injury, I started to realize that, you know, I always knew that I wanted to stay in the game. In what capacity, I wasn't sure. But I think at that point in time, I felt like a role of counsel on some level, given some of the baseball and life experience that I had gone through, was most likely going to be my calling once my playing days were over.
Does it feel like your calling now that you're doing it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I love what I do. I mean, it's difficult. You know, you want the best for every guy. We're playing, you know, in an era in which, you know, getting really close to modern players is important. Like it's really important to get the most out of them, to figure out why they do what they do, you know, what drives them, what motivates them, and how to best approach them. Right. You know, regardless of, you know, what my playing career was like, you know, what skill sets I might have as a coach, you know, how you approach each guy, really how you determine that is how you get to know the player and how some of your messaging is going to be best received based on who they are. And it's just daily problem solving, really, is what it kind of amounts to. And sometimes it may not have anything to do with anything pitching related, delivery related, pitch type related, anything like that. It's just letting them understand that you care about them. One of the best ways to earn the respect of a player is understanding them off the field and getting to know them off the field. And, but I think that that helps, but I do love what I do, and even though it can be difficult at times, and the physical failures that we're seeing, in today's game at the rate that they're occurring, it's definitely the shitty part of the job. Forgive me, sorry.
That's fine. Okay, I was gonna ask about how you cultivate buy-in, but I feel like you already answered that because it's crazy. I mean, I talked to some of your guys when you guys were in town, and buy-in. That's the thing that everybody says about the Rays, like I mean, pitching, but also hitting, but is just,
right.
Why are they good? Oh, they get the buy-in from the guys, that everyone there believes you're putting them in the right position to succeed. Is that like, I don't know, when you guys sign a new guy, do you cultivate that buy-in intentionally?
Well, you aim to, for sure, right? The track record helps.
Yeah.
But distilling down information and boiling it down so that it's easier to put into practice, right? It's easier for certain players to understand. It kind of supersedes at times like the language barrier, right, of different players that you're talking to, given their cultural backgrounds or, maybe full understanding, and aptitude to put things that you're bringing to them into practice. Now, if you bring trust your stuff into a contextual message, then it makes the buy-in a little bit easier. Illustrations are really powerful. It kind of takes my inability to kind of put things into words to help them understand it kind of out of the equation on some level. But the buy-in is huge, right? I mean, information's always been a part of this game. It's more a part of this game now on a granular level than it's ever been. But understanding it on a really complex level helps you distill it down, right? So I think some of that is kind of through the process of being educated by all the people that I've worked for here with Tampa since 2012 has helped me kind of understand how to best message it to the player so that they're best able to just like I said, put it into practice, take it into the game. These guys play for the outcomes. We'd like for them to surrender the result sometimes and trust the process, but they play for the result. And, if they have some good outcomes early on, then that buy-in just becomes that much more sticky.
Yeah. Do you tell them? So this was something that came up in talking to Shane. He said, I forget exactly how he phrased it. Should have looked it up, but he was like, Kyle tells us let him worry for us. And I think you mentioned that to me in the past, that you worry for them. Is that something you sort of tell them explicitly? Don't you worry, I'll worry, kind of?
Yeah, I do. But that's part of my job to manage them as pitchers, right? I mean, I don't know where we are in today's game, pitching coach, et cetera, but you're managing players, right? I have 13 or 14 that I'm trying to get the most out of each day. And a lot of times these guys press, they play a game that's worldwide. Their performance is known across the globe, and sometimes I feel like they press too much because of that, and it's more important for me to take that off of them so that they can more easily exhale, just be themselves. It's easier for them to flush an outing. You talk to them the next day. You don't avoid them. You make sure that they know that you're there. They're not second guessing themselves. You create that safe environment where they're not looking over their shoulder, and it makes it easier for them to flush, the outing that they had or a performance that they didn't like, or, for Shane, strike throwing has been a little bit of the topic this year. And I'm like, listen, man, let me concern myself with that and bring things back to you, so that you can just stay focused on your physical well-being, which is really most important for these guys, and getting out there every 5 or 6 days as a starter and physically feeling 10 feet tall, or, getting back out there and pitching frequently enough as a relief pitcher. And again, physically feeling as best as you can, because that's generally going to translate into confidence. And confidence is a really huge part of today's game.
This is a weird question. Are you prone to anxiety just as a person in your everyday life? Do you?
No, not really.
Okay.
I try to level the mountains and the valleys as best I can. Certainly in the dugout, and definitely when I'm at the field. It's important for me to be consistent. That requires some energy, to do that. But it's important for me to be pretty much the same guy each day. And I don't know, maybe my wife's a better person to answer that question. But
what do you think she would say? What would she say?
It would depend on the topic, but generally, no. I'm not very anxious. I just kind of let things play out. I listen. I want my players to realize that I'm constantly thinking about them. What's in their best interest. When do I bring something to them? I think one of the bigger skill sets necessary for a coach in today's game is to care about the player, but yet not smother them. Right? Finding those opportunities to communicate. And what is it that you communicate? Is it in between half innings? Is it on a side day? Is it, and providing them the necessary space, right? I mean, they're playing a kid's game, albeit there is pressure involved, but I want them to focus on the fact that it's a game and enjoy what they do and really appreciate the success that they have in their career, because they're far and away at the top of their game, at the top of whatever industry you want to consider. It's really special what they get a chance to go out there and do, and they're a real minority in terms of just how good they are and the level in which they get to do with their craft on a daily basis.
When a guy is healthy, how often are you worrying that injury is right around the corner?
I'd be lying if I didn't admit a little bit more right now. But we do have indicators now, right? Different things. We have break values on the board at the trop, which can be suggestive of certain things. I pay attention to trend lines in terms of velocity. We have motion capture, markerless motion capture reports that come in that show us different things about, their delivery trends and stuff like that. So there's a lot more information for me to digest, but it's still about the person. It's still about the relationship. It's still about their body language. It's still about what they're willing to share, even though the admission of weakness is something they're not ever going to be comfortable with, right? They're all very much competitive, but the closer I get to them, maybe they will share something with me that's a little bit easier for me that assist me in my ability to manage them. But I think to be good at what you do in today's game, especially in my role, you have to be very aware. And sometimes, I mean, you worry a little bit, a couple of pitches show up that look a little bit odd, your radar goes up and, but you have to just, it's balancing vigilance and not being paranoid. You have to really, be able to balance those things. And maybe my personality or the lack of anxiousness kind of assists me in that, but it is part of the role. And, just with some of the occurrence of, some of these physical failures with pitchers the first half of this year is going to heighten that a little bit, right? It's just kind of part of it.
When you see those indicators, whether it's the motion capture or the velocity, do you tell guys? Do they know it?
It depends. It depends on the player. It depends on their ability to digest the information. But generally, no. I want them to trust me that I'll bring something to them when it's necessary, but I also want them to trust me that I'm able to absorb everything that I can, and combining that with the dialogue that we have on a daily basis, the relationship that we have. And, when I do see something, I want them to believe that I'm going to raise it when we feel like it's a concern. No different than when, a break on a particular pitch is a little bit off. And, a reliever, I'll generally give it an outing or two before I bring something to them. Sometimes it corrects itself. You have work days with starters or bulk guys for us, so you can address certain things and get out in front of those things as well. But generally, I like to absorb it and then hope that they trust me that I'll bring it to them so that it doesn't make them worry.
Yeah. Because
that's just not a good recipe for them to go out and continue to have some level of success if they're worried, or if they're scared, or if they don't feel safe.
Do Do pitchers express fear about injury more these days? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if it's a totally healthy pitcher, it sometimes seems to me like, I don't know, Tommy John in particular. People avoid saying UCL. They avoid saying Tommy John. Like, is there like, I don't know, fear or around that just in the conversations you have with guys? If they feel something in their elbow, are they nervous when they come talk to you?
It is not shared with me, but it is something that they're human beings.
Yeah.
You know, they see a friend of theirs get hurt, right? You just never know. And even with all these indicators, there's still more that we don't know than we do know. And I think the pitchers recognize that on some level, but it's very rarely discussed or brought up in conversation with me. Maybe amongst each other, it might be, you know, as peers, but it's not discussed with me very often, if at all, unless it's something that they feel like it's important to raise. But yeah, they're human beings. When a couple of guys get hurt, you know, in a week or whatever, I think it's very natural, you know, as a human to go to kind of the potential worst case scenario for themselves. And, you know, it makes it a little bit difficult, you know, but, you know, we have guys like Justin Sue, our mental performance, you know, coach that's helpful with a lot of these things. You know, some of these more modern coaches that are assisting in the fact that these guys aren't robots. It's not a push button. It's not played by computers. The information that computers provide us certainly help us do our jobs. But I mean, if I'm playing in today's game, no different than when I played and had injuries prior, there weren't as many injuries occurring when I got hurt. But if I'm playing in today's game, my mind's certainly going to wander a little bit, you know, as a pitcher, with the injury occurrence being what it is. And if a couple of the guys on my team get hurt, it's just part of it.
What was the first major pitching injury you dealt with as a coach back 2012, I guess?
Taylor Guerreri, 2013 in Bowling Green. Had Tommy John. We were in Cedar Rapids. I remember like it was yesterday. And that was the first one. He was the number one pick of ours in 2011. I spent 2012 with him in Hudson Valley. And then also the following season in Bowling Green. And it was midway through that season. I remember he warmed up a ton, which, and, you know, looking back in hindsight, you know, he was trying to work through something that was a feeling that was out of the ordinary for him. And the ligament failed him in that very start, I think a couple innings later. And that was the first one I dealt with. And I took it hard. I take them all hard, but like that was the first experience that I had as a coach with a player that I had gotten very close with, that was extremely talented, that failed physically on the mound. And it was tough to absorb. And it was a hurdle that I had to get over for the first time, you know, kind of as a mentor. And I remember it like it was yesterday, and I try to continue to learn from each one as they pass. But it is definitely the most difficult part of what I do.
What was it that you felt when he got hurt?
Disappointment for him, you know, sadness, you know, for him. I experienced it, right? So it's like kind of being there, having worn the shoe before, those types of things. It was in frustration with myself, like, to be honest. Like part of a pitching coach's job is to figure out ways to maximize the output of the delivery to take stress off the arm. It's not just about shaping pitches. It's not about getting guys in the zone more frequently all the time. Like part of my job is to help them with their delivery. You know, so when they fail physically, it's a little tough not to be frustrated with yourself and not learning a whole lot more, even with some of these modern indicators since then. And really the occurrence of injuries increasing since that happened in 2013. It does make it, you know, I do have some sleepless nights, and, you know, because the depth of the relationships that you create, it hurts that much more a little bit, you know, when guys do fail. And, you know, so I'm still in that process of learning kind of how to best deal with that, and, you know, how to best learn from it and figure out ways to ultimately help these guys stay healthy.
Tell me about the Drew Rasmussen day when he came out of that game, because he had pitched incredibly. So it sort of seemed like, oh, okay, well, great start for Drew. Maybe you could have sent him back out there. Maybe there was a pitch count thing. And then, did he say something when he first came out of the game? How did those sort of next 24 hours play out?
So it was the seventh inning. Kevin and I were talking about it. The pitch count was low. We felt pretty good about where he had been, and we were going to let him go, at least for another inning, to complete 8. Whether or not 9 was on the table really probably would have depended on where the total pitch number might have been. But the last 6 pitches of the 7th inning were dramatically different for me. And Yankee Stadium, same thing, has break values on the board, and it also has velocity on the board. I noticed the last 6 pitches to be about 5 to 6 miles an hour off on his sweeping breaking ball, on his cutter, and he didn't throw another fastball after the fastball he threw to Gleyber Torres. And when he was walking in, I kind of went to the top step and I asked him proactively, how do you feel? Because I noticed something was a little bit off in those last 5 or 6 pitches of the inning. And he admitted that his elbow felt a little nervy. That was what he told me. And I guess that's an example. I mean, there's nothing that we could have done to get out in front of that particular example, but it was enough for me to say to him, which I very rarely ask any questions relative to anything physical. But when I saw that and I noticed that, I think it was important for me to at the very least raise it. And as soon as I raised it, he admitted that there was something not quite right. And that was tough. And at that point, we had to pivot, obviously, and get somebody ready for the 8th inning. But that was out of nowhere. There were no signs leading up to those last 5 pitches of that 7th inning. And then when the signs showed up, it was important for me to ask the question.
And then what does he do? So, when does he go? Does he leave immediately and go get imaging done? What?
So,
how does that play out?
No. He realized at that point in time the 7th inning outing was over. We weren't going to send him back out, and the imaging was the following morning. And he went in. I think he had a physical examination shortly after that outing ended, and then he got an image, I think, the following morning. And I think after maybe 2 or 3 days later, he went to see Keith Meister in Dallas, who had performed his last surgery and been inside the elbow. So probably one of the better guys to be able to give him, a diagnosis in terms of where he felt like he was, but those are those kind of limbo days, the period where the uncertainty can be a little overwhelming and in terms of what, all that Drew's having to absorb. And I still don't know what to do in those instances. I send him some text messages. I'm just trying to be very positive about things. And that's really all I feel like I can do. But I'm very sympathetic and sympathize, immensely just with what he goes through in those 2 to 3 days of kind of not knowing what's going on.
With a guy like him, or maybe even more aptly with a guy like Jeffrey Springs, who has an incredible start to a year cut short, what do you tell them once they're on the other side of finding out, okay, this is going to be a long layoff, it's going to be a long rehab? What's the sort of message you give them at the outset of that? Or maybe for even Tyler when he got hurt, and
Sure.
it's going to be a long time till they're back on the field. What is the sort of we'll be here waiting type message? What do you tell them in that instance?
Well, it's like the surgery day 0, right? So that interim period between the feeling what they feel and then deciding whatever it is that they're going to do, surgical intervention or otherwise. But if it's surgical intervention, like Tyler or like Jeffrey Springs, you talk about surgery day 0, and then you really just have to let one day lead you to the next. But I think there's also opportunities there when you don't have the physical capability of going out and pitching every 5 or 6 days to not go through the typical stress that you're putting your body through emotionally, physically, and embrace that on some level and find some time to spend some time uninterrupted with your families. Jeffrey in particular, with Stetson, he's got a young boy. And listen, nothing could have predicted this. It's not what any of you guys want to go through. but you got to take the positives out of it. And for Jeffrey, I mean, being able to find a house here locally and spend some time with his family and focus on what the next 12 months are going to look like and let that be the new thing that you compete towards and compete, just get back healthy and get a ball back in your hand. But you go through stages. All right. The first portion of it is pretty boring, especially for Tommy John. You're getting your range of motion back. These guys are wearing contraptions that allow a certain amount of extension and flexion. And then they, progress to getting some plyos in their hands and moving their arms around. And then once the tissue is officially healed, they start to see the light at the end of the tunnel when they start putting the ball back in their hand. Their throwing progression, ultimately they graduate from, and then they start a side progression. And now they can start to focus on what they need to do to get better and get back to returning to form. So it's kind of a gradual process with stages, and you just talk through those stages with them, and you continue to reassure them that medical technology has never been in a better place, and to continue to stay positive in many ways that they can.
Do you ever worry you're putting them in harm's way, trying to get so much out of them?
Yes. Yeah, I think part of the nature of the job nowadays is, in an effort to get them better or hope to get them better, you're putting them at risk of getting hurt. That's a really difficult thing to accept. It's gotten harder, I'll admit, for myself. And, but I don't know what the alternative is, right? I mean, you want to get guys better. They want to get better. You don't want to have the healthiest team necessarily or the healthiest pitching staff without pushing the limits of improving them, but that's a really, really tough balance to strike, especially in today's game. But yeah, I mean, I do worry about that.
But is that what keeps you up?
Yeah, sure. And just being frustrated with myself that something along the way that I might could have considered that would have assisted in keeping them healthy as well as improving them. Right. That's kind of the next step with, some of what we understand and what we understand to be performance variables with some of this motion capture information that we're able to digest, or something that we understand about some of this motion capture stuff that's subjective to each guy that helps them limit, some of the stress on the medial elbow or shoulder. Right. I mean, I'm trying to learn, as much as I can. I've been a vicious learner for quite some time, but this for me is really the next thing that I'd really like to figure out a better way to prioritize, just given the physical failures that we've endured.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's almost like a pitcher who signs with the Rays. It's like, do you want to find out your fullest potential at any cost? Kind of, you know what I mean? It's
right.
Like, how great can you be? But they might push you beyond what your body can handle right now. It's interesting.
Yep. Yeah.
What's been the best day in your career?
The best day in my career?
As a coach.
I'd say the day I started as a coach. 2011, I had a winter ball job lined up, and I had shoulder surgery with the Mets in 2010. I went through the surgery just because I wanted to make sure I had some closure. I still wanted to pursue playing. At the end of that, or on the other side of the surgery, I didn't get the response I was hoping for. That gave me some closure to know that physically I was no longer capable of doing this. I had to notify my winter ball club in the off season of 2011 that I wasn't going to come down and pitch for them. And then I was fortunate enough to be the 9th interview for the Hudson Valley Renegades job in 2012, the short season affiliate for the Tampa Bay Rays. And I got the job somehow, and I realized that was the start of a new chapter in my life in baseball. And looking back, I'd have to say that was probably my best day as a coach.
This will be the last question. If you don't mind telling me, what's been the hardest day?
Anytime one of my guys get hurt. They're all the same. they're all awful. I mean, Glasnow in Chicago, Jeffrey at home, Drew in New York. They're all on the same level. It's a very difficult part of the job, getting beyond that. I mean, even the 2 days following Drew, like, I was just not in a good spot. And, and then I have to get myself into the right headspace again and realize, look, we're still playing games every day. We have to serve the other pitchers that are on the club. And, I as somebody that's responsible for not just one guy, but for the group, I have to keep moving forward. But anytime any of these guys get hurt with an arm injury, it's the worst day.
On a bleak note, thank you so much for joining us, Kyle. I know I love how much you care about your guys. I really feel it, and I feel it from them too when I talk to them. Yeah,
I don't know any other way to do the job, and I do think at times it may work against me in terms of, how it might affect my moods after they get hurt and things like that. Things that I have to get over, right? Psychological hurdles that I have to get beyond. But I don't you have to get close to players. Like, if you want the best chance to get the most out of them and to optimize them as players, you have to get to know them as people. And through time spent, emotions grow and build, and that's what makes it difficult,
Yeah.
But I think it's the right way to go about it, and I'll find hopefully a better way to keep them healthy, and so that they can get better and stay healthy, and I can sit in the dugout and watch them go do their thing
and enjoy it, because they're very good at it. Thank you to Kyle for joining us on the bandwagon. And because I did the quiz this week, that means that, Zach, it is your turn to bandwagon something.
I am going to bandwagon pretty much a specific play. So you may have seen earlier this week that Ronald Acuña was just on first base, and the Braves worked a walk, and he's just slowly, trotting to second base like a normal person who's going from first to second on a walk. This is against the Dodgers. And when he gets to second base, he just hits turbo and goes to third. And the fielders are not paying attention. It seems that only Will Smith, the Dodgers catcher, noticed this. And the third baseman is looking at his shoes, looking at the outfield, looking at anything. And Ronald Acuña just zips by him, ends up at third base. And this particular, so great for Ronald Acuña Jr., who is the best player in baseball so far this year and has a lot of home runs, a lot of steals. He's said he wants 40-40, maybe 50-50, and he's doing enough to get there right now. But my favorite thing about this is just the style of the play of guys who get to second base and realize that even though it's outside the bounds of normalcy, that no one is paying attention to third base and they're just going to take it. My favorite version of this happened early in Mookie Betts' career when he was facing the Phillies, and he stole second while they were in an extreme shift, and the throw was pretty close to him, but not on line exactly. And he dove headfirst into second, swung himself around, stood up, and just took off to third. And the closest guy to him had the ball, but was slower than him. So he's just chasing after Mookie Betts. And it's you're not going to catch him. So I love those versions of that play. I
had not seen the Ronald Acuña play until you mentioned it. And so then I Googled it and I watched it. And because it had already happened, I was able to answer this question for myself. But my first thought was is that allowed? I was like, what is the rules? Or I was is it a dead ball while someone is walking? No, people just don't usually attempt it. It was incredible. It was a very fun manifestation of him doing the things he wants to do, running. And what is he on pace for? Do you want me to kill time while you look that up?
I can do this very quickly, but
I will
vamp for a second.
For a little bit. We talked about it in our very first episode. I believe I drafted Ronald Acuña Jr. going maybe 50-50 as a storyline I'd like to see this season, because it was something he has talked about numerous times in his career, and I didn't necessarily remember because he had like a year and a half of being not so great because of injury. More than that. I did not remember how close he had previously come. And so it sort of felt like it was out of nowhere. And then it was like, actually, that seems entirely within reach. Great way for me to cue you up. You nodded like you got this ready.
So right now he's played all the games. So the on pace is as if he plays all the games, which is probably not going to be true. But he's on pace for 38 homers and 65 steals. So,
wow.
Take some of that energy, put it into the home runs. You can back off the steals a little bit. But yeah, he's going to have a completely nutty season is what he's on pace for. That's the technical term.
Oh my goodness. That on pace for has renewed my excitement in the possibility of him going 40-40 or 50-50. Like I didn't realize that it was like, oh, okay. It's not close in the positive direction one way, but again, he's probably not going to play 162 games and close on the home runs. Oh, gotta watch more Braves games. That is Ronald Acuña Jr., very dynamic, compelling baseball player. It's kind of sad that he wasn't on the 2021 team. I mean, it's really sad, but
I mean, he was on it, just not.
He was on it. I'm reminded again of the fact that like we should make Ronald Acuña Jr. more of a national level baseball star that on the level of on the level of who? That's actually great. Here we go. That's my counter to your bandwagon. How famous should, of the guys who are super famous, I don't know, Mike Trout, Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Bryce Harper, what should Ronald Acuña Jr. be? As part of your bandwagon, pitch Ronald Acuña Jr. as a star that people outside of Atlanta should pay attention to.
I think he's he's kind of the new Ken Griffey, of a guy who is, that's not an answer in the context of your question,
no, it's okay.
But a guy who is kind of breaking down barriers of the new style of play, of how guys want to play if they are just completely capable of doing everything, which he is. This is how you want to play. He kind of, I think, most prominently popularized the pause at third base to do a little celebration type thing instead of, I don't really know what guys used to do around third base other than just high five the coach, but he started doing his different things, and Tatis does one now. Acuña did that. Acuña's gotten into the whole bat flip controversy like everyone else, which is stupid. He should just flip his bat however he wants. But I think in particular, his viewpoint of I want the big homer steals combo, guys are not willing to be ambitious about that, or at least a lot of them aren't willing to be ambitious about that, and he very much is. And then he's also capable of just actually doing it, which helps. But I think that especially right now with the rules incentivizing stolen bases more, he's a godsend for the idea of a 30-30, 40-40 star being a huge fun thing. He's really trying to make it that. And so Ohtani's his own thing. He's a global superstar, but beneath that, yeah, I think Acuña can be in that class. And I obviously right now he's tracking toward an MVP level season. So getting that actual MVP on his record, which he's played well enough before to get close. I think once he actually gets an MVP, he'll really be in that tier.
I agree. How many was 68 stolen bases that he was on pace for?
That's what he's on track for. Yeah, 65. Yeah, I think
65. That is the last few weeks of the season. If there are not still really tight races, that alone will be appointment viewing. So yeah, get on the Ronald Acuña Jr. bandwagon. Not early, but early for this year. So I think that's a good one. All right. That is all we've got for you this week because we both have to run to baseball games. You to watch the Padres play the Nationals and me to go see the D-backs play the Phillies in my hometown. Kind of. Not really. I'm currently in my hometown. It's Haddonfield, New Jersey. That's all we've got for you this week. Make sure you catch up with everything we are writing by following both of us on Twitter. I am at Hannah R. Kaiser. He is at Z Kaiser. And if you've made it this far, subscribe to the podcast, to the YouTube channel, leave us a 5-star review, tell a friend, and we'll be back next week with another episode of The Bandwagon.